Get back! I am a priest!
Hello and welcome to YCFT. The new Salem's Lot is finally here. By the time this comes out, probably it would have been out for about 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was supposed to come out 2 years ago, but
it's a sore subject.
That is a sore subject. So obviously we are not new to doing Salem's Lot on this channel. In fact, I believe Salem's Lot 2004. In fact, I say believe. I know that is still our best performing video to date. We don't know why.
We can't even begin to guess, but thanks.
So this movie has been a long time coming. So it was directed by Gary Doberman, I believe. Doberman. He directed like Annabelle Comes Home. He was a writer on the most recent It adaptation, so he's not unfamiliar to the horror genre, and he's not unfamiliar to Stephen King. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those films where it had a release date 2 years ago, and it just disappeared.
Yeah.
It very much felt like it was going to be one of those films. There was leaks about it, about how Warner Bros. Were potentially going to write it off for tax, like they did with Batgirl. Like, at this time, I believe Coyote vs. Acme is still going to be written off because they wanted like 70 million off other streamers for it.
There's a graveyard of forgotten Warner Brothers movies that's slowly getting a bit overcrowded.
Yeah, and earlier this year, suddenly, there were images released of this film.
Yeah.
Oh my god, because 2 years ago, there was a new edition of the book, which had just the cast stood against, like, backs facing the house, which is a great looking shot. This movie is actually, in many ways, very nicely shot.
Yeah.
I think the cinematography is really... We'll get into that. So this movie suddenly re-emerged, and they announced they were going to drop it straight to Max. But over here in the UK, it got a theatrical release. But that theatrical release was a week after it came out. So we watched it before it came out in theaters.
We didn't want to wait.
We couldn't wait. Plus, Terrifier 3 came out on the same day, so I went to go watch that.
You did?
I did. So it's just a weird place where this movie's kind of been left online to die.
To die?
With little to no advertising. It was a poster. First, they released a scene before they released a trailer.
It was a weird scene as well.
It was a weird scene to release it. Was it one just to be like, oh, look, atmosphere and tension.
They're creeping around the Marston house, aren't
And the trailer showed off far too much. So that was just a bit odd on Warner Brothers' part. Like, it's a Stephen King adaptation. Surely if you put it out in theaters, it would make its money back.
Oh, yeah. There's
also the rumours that the original runtime of this movie was going to be 3 hours. And it clocks in at just under 2. And I think it's been universally agreed across most people is that this movie was too short. And every scene feels like it ends too soon.
There could very well be a 3 hour, even longer version that exists somewhere of this film.
Yeah, and if it's going straight to streaming, why was that just to keep the budget down so you didn't have to do more
I don't know.
post? If they ever did an extended Blu-ray of this, I would pick it up because there is some really good stuff in this film. It's just every moment feels like it ends too soon. There are characters that are credited in this in the credits that are not in this movie.
Yeah, so we know more stuff was shot.
Like Derek Mears plays Marston, so we know we must have had a flashback of what happens in the Marston house. Our main Lewis, not Bill Pullman. He plays Ben Mears. We know he even mentions that he's seen something in his traumatic in his youth, and we know from previous adaptations in the novel that is something that happened at the Marston house. We don't see any of that. Straker mentions, my master wants to complete his work that he started so long ago. Well, we've not seen any of that. There must have been flashbacks of the Marston house that have been completely taken out. So I'm like, Derek Mears. We like Derek Mears.
Yeah, we love Derek.
Where is he?
It's a tale as old as time. That when you adapt a novel, especially one as chunky as a Stephen King novel.
Gary Doberman has said that it was a particular struggle to adapt this one.
I'm sure it was, but inevitably, yes, things are going to get left out. That is just the nature of adaptation. And I totally accept that. That is fine. I think what is pretty unanimous across the board when it comes to this particular adaptation is that we can all finally agree Salem's Lot does not lend itself to a film format. It should and probably can only exist as a miniseries.
Yeah.
To really do it justice. And even then, you would have to trim it. You couldn't include absolutely everything. But the small town, the characters, the history of the town, that can only really be told with a prolonged amount of time, i.e. a miniseries.
Yeah.
It doesn't work as a film.
They did try, and if it was a original 3 hour cut, then that puts it similarly in line with the original miniseries and the 2004 one. we've often debated that this should probably be like an 8 to 10 episode miniseries.
I agree with that.
And we realistically already have an adaptation out there that is close to what it would need to be, and it's called Midnight Mass.
Yeah.
Like,
That's fair. And that did very well.
Yeah, very well liked. Mike Flanagan is a massive Stephen King fan, and he's done some good Stephen King adaptations, and it very much felt inspired by Salem's Lot.
I would also just like to say, maybe a counter argument to the point I just made about how it can only really exist as a miniseries. The adaptation from a few years ago, that was split into 2 chapters. We had It Chapter 1, It Chapter 2. Now, I think, again, by and large, people preferred the first one to the second one. But it is a chunkier book than Salem's Lot as well. And they 2 features, but,
To be fair, part 2 was always going to struggle with. Even in the novel, the adult side of the story is less interesting than the kids' side.
I also think it would work as a miniseries as well. I would love to see it.
It did. It did work.
It
did.
But maybe like a prolonged miniseries.
So since our last outing was Salem's Lot, you've still not finished the book.
No, I haven't finished the book. I have 2 versions of the book and I haven't finished it. I will. I know I will. I just need to be in the mood to go back to it.
Yeah. Me, on the other hand, so I listened to Night Shift, which is a collection of short stories by Stephen King, because I've been told that One for the Road was on there. For some reason, the audiobook I listened to didn't, but it did have Jerusalem's Lot, the prequel that is set in like the late 1800s. And this week, I just on YouTube listened to One for the Road, which is set about 2 years after the events of Salem's Lot. Oh my god, that one is really good. If I was ever to do an adaptation, I would open it with that. Like a lot of miniseries like to jump forward to the very end. I would open with a version of One for the Road to set the scene before Ben arrives. So that's just my opinion on that one. But so I've been continued to do Salem's Lot research since ending our videos, like 2 years ago, because I enjoy it's a nice world. This story. I believe it's one of Stephen King's favourites.
I think it's a lot of people's favourite. This was only his second novel,
which is baffling to me.
In 4 years, he released Carrie, his first, Salem's Lot, The Shining, and The Stand, I believe.
The Stand is a chunk.
4 major novels in 4 years. That is insane.
It is. Should we actually start talking about the movie at hand? So the story is very similar to what we've seen before. Ben Mears, author, grew up in Salem's Lot, and he is returning for inspiration on a new novel. Mm-hmm. What is actually absent is Ben writing his novel.
It's not,
or even talking about his novel.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he arrives in this town. You can see the Marston house on the, deep in the background, poorly composited in.
Yeah.
I like the design of it, I must say, but I could always tell it. That's not really there.
Yeah.
He goes to rent a room, because he does in all adaptation. Mm-hmm. But this is where it starts to deviate a little bit, because he meets Susan Norton, played by
Mackenzie Lee.
And she is working in Larry Crockett's office. She's been different in every adaptation. She worked in a cafe in 2004, so they've always adapted her. Because this is set in the 70s, this version.
75, I think, specifically, yeah.
So that means that they've already taken out like the whole, like Larry's secretary having an affair, which in the original adaptation was having an affair with Larry himself. In the novel, it's not. That was an amalgamation that they have to do.
Different character.
With a story like this, you've got to merge things together. So they've completely scrapped that storyline, which I don't particularly mind.
No.
I just find it interesting that Susan has to be in a different place every time we adapt this novel.
Yeah. That's the thing I don't mind, and what I mean about, adaptation, you have to expect that things have to be trimmed or have to be, moved around or just taken out completely. I don't mind mixing characters' storylines together or swapping storylines in certain elements. If it works, it works. And for something like this, Susan is working for Crockett. That's fine.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fine. Take that story completely out of it. Her dad is also not around in this one. He has died. Obviously, he was quite a big part in the original miniseries.
He did.
But the role that he played in the original miniseries is not the role that it was in the novel. They kind of merged his character with Dr. Jimmy Cody, who Dr. Cody is... Jimmy is just never allowed to be adapted as a character.
Justice for Jimmy.
Justice for Jimmy. Who plays... I don't think we find out her first name. It's just Dr. Cody.
It's Dr. Cody. I mean, it's Alfred Woodard who plays her.
She does not want to be in this movie. I have seen her do incredible performances, and this film is not one of them.
Well, she's a very well-established actress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a mix of her not wanting to be there, also the dialogue that she has as well. I don't know what it is, but every line she says just fell completely flat. It's like high stakes situations, and Alfred Woodard is just like, yeah. Let's go hide, I guess.
Yeah. Ben and Susan have a little budding romance, but
As
then
they
suddenly a
always do.
child goes missing and the town becomes besieged by vampires.
Oh yeah, Ralphie Glick.
Ralphie Glick. When Ralphie Glick is taken, we have this beautiful shot of them silhouetted in the woods against the night sky. I think we stopped to be like, this looks amazing.
Yeah, it looked gorgeous.
And this certain director's like, he has a very particular look. When I was watching this, I kept thinking, this looks like Annabelle Comes Home, with a lot of atmospheric fog and flooding it with red and blue light. So if you don't like that particular style, well, sorry, but it's everywhere throughout this film.
It is literally everywhere.
I don't mind it, but it did start to be like, I'm a bit bored of this look now. But one thing he also does really well is planned transitions. Whether that can be like just a twist down some stairs leading into something else, or going down from a bed to seeing nothing, to going up, and we've now transitioned to like the next day and there's people there. And I'm like, oh, he always does really nice transitions, and I will always appreciate that. But that scene of the Glick boys walking home from Mark Petrie's house. Mark, who plays Mark in this one?
Jordan Preston Carter.
I think he was really good, and I think Mark as a character in this one was really good. He was a bit of a badass.
Yes, he knows his shit.
Yeah, Ralphie Glick. So they're walking home, silhouette, and then suddenly see the silhouette of a man take him.
Yeah.
And it's Straker, who's played by
Straker. Oh God, can I pronounce his name?
He's in Game of Thrones.
He's played by a guy called Pilou Asbeck, I think. Sorry.
And I think he does a fine job, but he also has a lot less screen time than other Strakers have in the past.
The Straker is...
I'm a fan of his mustache.
Straker is the first character we're introduced to, as far as I can recall, in this, because I think the very first scene is shot in his little shop. It's an interesting take on the character. My issue is Straker is one of the more like interesting, nefarious of the characters. Yeah, like he's Barlow's bitch, essentially. And there's always been that, like weird thing. I'm sure it's more established in the book, but is Straker human? Is he not? Is he just a familiar? Is he undead as well? Like, what powers does he have? And I like this guy's portrayal as like this weird, like dandy-esque character, almost like out of place. My issue is, we as the audience obviously know that Straker is bad and is doing Barlow's bidding, but the actor doesn't have any scenes with any of the other characters, really. It's like we see him when he kidnaps Ralphie Glick, obviously. We see him when he's presenting Ralphie to Barlow, which is a scene I kind of liked. And then he pops up a few times hereafter. But ultimately, we don't see him interact with any of the other adult characters. We don't see him chat to Ben. We don't see him chat to Susan or even Matt Burke. It's like, I would have liked to have seen him play off with some of the others. Because otherwise he just feels like, I don't know, like a third wheel in a way.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean with that one. Yeah, so after he takes the Glick boy,
Ralphie.
So the town starts to get a bit nervous, and everyone's a bit nervous of Ben with him being the new one. Again, we don't really have a lot of time to... I think that's the only interaction that Ben has with Floyd before like the end of the movie. Whereas in the original one, obviously they have a fight because Floyd was Susan's boyfriend.
Yeah, that's just totally not a
Yeah,
thing,
certainly just not a thing. But this obviously leads into the other Glick brother, whose name I've completely forgotten. Danny Glick. And for the most part, I really like this scene. Even though Danny does incredibly dumb stuff, so he goes outside and the back on is full of fog, and he thinks he hears his brother.
The harmonica.
He hears harmonicas. Mark gives him a harmonica, says, "Oh, this will help you if you're scared of the dark." So suddenly that becomes a really important thing for his character for like the probably 20 minutes he had. So he thinks he hears him, he goes out into the garden, and for the most part, this is really nice, and I love the seesaw, just moving on its own.
Nice little touch.
Voices, you got the camera just kind of revolving around the character. I'm like, and he finds the harmonica. Again, this shouldn't be a special, other than him having him on it when it died. This isn't a special item between the two of them.
No.
And they kind of ruin it by just having a hand come up from the sky, grab him, and pull him up.
It's a cheap scare.
We are probably going to spoil a lot of this movie.
Oh, I'm sorry. We should have said at the beginning. I appreciate it's just, it's a fairly new release, but I don't think we're ever going to revisit this adaptation. So I think this is the only chance we're going to have to talk about it in depth.
Yeah.
So we should spoil it.
So I think that ruins what was a pretty creepy and well put together scene before that.
There was nice tension It was really nice tension. I have an issue with the cinematography.
An artificial softness to the whole film.
Well, it is the softness. You described it really nicely. It's like there's a fake film look to it. But saying earlier, like the director's trademark sort of red and blue hues that he imbues like in every scene. You
got a bit sick of it.
Don't quite care for it. A Night Sky is not that shade of blue.
Did you have that problem with Annabelle Comes Home as well?
I did.
Yeah,
I did. I appreciate that's his thing. That's absolutely fine for me. I'm watching that scene of a little boy being scared and he's looking around his backyard, and all I can think of is Sky doesn't look like that. That's too blue, you know.
Yeah.
And it looks a bit too polished and a little bit too soft. And yeah, I don't know. It's a fake film look. I'm not huge.
Like an artificial softness. To the whole film.
But I also agree, like the pulling up. It's a cheap scare from what was a really nicely built up scene.
I think I said when I was watching, I was like, I don't care about these two kids. Where in the novel and the original one, it's devastating. You feel the impact it has on the town. And I could not have gave two fucks about these characters in this film. And I was like, oh, that's a bit of a shame. Because then we next see Danny, he stood at his parents' bed, so, I feel ill, and he's got the illness. And rather than having his brother attack him in the hospital, he just kind of starts drinking blood from a bag that they're trying to transfuse, and that's when he dies. Leading to the coffin scene. But one thing this film does do incredibly well is the dead kids. There's such a creepiness about it. Even the coffin scene with
Mike.
Because God, I am not doing well with characters today. Do you remember when someone in the comments of an old video had a go at me because I kept getting Parkins Gillespie's? I still can't say it.
You got it.
Is that
Parkins Gillespie?
Gillespie. I got it wrong, and I'm not good with names. He kind of falls asleep against a tree at the funeral and then wakes up in the middle of the night. I would kill to be able to sleep for that long. Oh my God, I that must have been the best sleep ever. Because usually funerals are like midday.
Yeah.
And he slept through to the middle of the night. He just had a 10-hour sleep against a tree and no one woke him up.
Mike is a character I really love. I love him from what I was reading of him in the book about a year and a half ago. I really liked. I like him in previous adaptations as well. I particularly love, I think it's Jeffrey Lewis in the original. Love him. Think he's great. This now, his character specifically is what I don't like about the adaptation, because Mike is criminally underused. And in my mind, I think, going back to the very beginning of this film, Mike should have been one of the two people dropping off Barlow's coffin or the crate at the Marston house. Because as it is, those two characters that drop off the crate that we're introduced to, we never see again. To me, it would have made more sense to have someone like Mike be one of those two people. So we're introduced to him, we're familiar with him. So then when we get to this funeral scene, he actually means something a bit more to us. Like we're familiar with him. We know a bit more about him. As it is, Mike, he just he comes and he goes.
Yeah, he gets bitten. We know what happens after that.
Yeah.
I do like that scene when he thinks that there's someone inside the coffin. I think that was done pretty well.
Yeah.
Because that leads us on to Danny Glick then going after Mark Petrie, which is probably the most famous scene in the original movie. I wasn't a big fan of, as far as I remember, I wasn't a big fan of it in 2004. I don't think it was done as nearly as...
I can't remember it in 2004.
This one, I think, was done pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
It's the eyes, the kids' eyes, the way they glow. I really, really like it. The fog outside the window to have him floating, those also work really nicely. I was like, it's obvious that he's hypnotized, that the vampires can hypnotize in this. This whole film goes back to a more traditional form of vampire. So, obviously, fearing religion, that tends to be pretty common anyway. But having to be invited into the house and stuff like that, being able to hypnotize, but the vampires feel scarier in certain scenes anyway than I think vampires have in such a long time. And I was happy to have a more traditional vampire story. It's clear when they are hypnotizing someone because their eyes glaze over, and he tries to hypnotize Mark to let him in. I really like that.
It's a well done scene.
I think what breaks him out of it is the cross on his little model. I love how he's still got his little model. He's still into all his horror. The little cross starts to glow. I love the glowing crosses. That's something I love in the novel, and I'm really glad that the glowing crosses are in here.
It's cool to know that it's in the novel.
Yeah. So he grabs this little model of a crucifix and whacks it on his cheek, and he's out the window. And I'm like,
Yeah.
as a scene, I still don't think it's as good as the original, but I really liked it.
It's something also, I like how Danny in this one, he's in his funeral attire, he's in his little suit.
Yeah.
Whereas we had issue with the, was it in the original, is it Ralphie or Danny? I can't remember, but I think it's Ralphie, when he first appears to his brother, he's in his pyjamas, which wouldn't have made any sense.
No, it wouldn't have made any sense at all.
He was taken in like his jeans and his jacket, you know, why is he in his gym jams?
But also it's another, again, a time issue, because when these two characters meet, Mark and Danny meet again later on, like, he stakes him.
Yes.
And he's like, I promised I would free you. These characters also don't have a lot of time together before. So they go around to his house. Prior to that, we see them on the schoolyard and we meet the bully. So Mark usually punches out the bully. That's when we meet Matt Burke as well. I do like Matt Burke.
I like
in this one. Who plays him?
Bill Camp.
Basically, all versions of Matt Burke have been good. Mm-hmm. But it also means, like, the child characters are always, like, the heart of any Stephen King story, and we don't spend enough time with them. Hence, me not giving a fuck about the Glick boys dying. But I do really like Mark as a character. Mark also does not have a ton of time with Ben.
No.
We also, ourselves, do not have enough time with Ben.
Yeah, we said this for 2004. Ben is ultimately sacrificed a little bit to pave way for more time spent with the townfolk.
Which this one is doing as well. Which does pay off in a way, because when we start seeing the townfolk as vampires, oh, we've seen you for like one scene. But that does mean that Ben and Susan take a bit of a backseat until they're needed for the stories. And again, it's like it's doing what 2004 did, but with less time. And I'm going to keep coming back to it's a timing issue,
because it's the biggest thing of the whole movie.
Yeah,
it's responsible for so much.
I like Matt finding Mike in the bar.
Yeah.
I like the way he was covered in shadow. I like just seeing the bar. The bar is such a big part of the novel.
Oh.
As well. Like they're in it quite often. Weasel's only mentioned by name, or we see like his shoulder as he walks downstairs. That's a shame. I always liked Weasel as a character.
Yeah.
He worked at the boarding house. I always find it weird, like by today's logic, I can't think of a reason that Matt would take one of his former students home and it not come across as creepy. And in some adaptation, I think they're gonna have to write in a way that maybe their family, he was friends with his family or something like that.
Maybe.
Because it still is a bit odd.
It's a bit like, I just kind of looked at it as, oh, they're friends. It's a small town, like they know each other.
Yeah, but he was a former student of his.
Oh.
I believe so in the novel. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong there. So, 2004 played on that a bit more with like Burke potentially having like a repressed sexuality.
Yeah. You've always wanted me, Mike.
Andre Bro was R.I.P. He was fantastic. I really liked him in that role.
I know you've always wanted me. He says something like that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Mike, you're dead.
So he brings him back. You can tell he sees the markings. But then as he goes outside the house, because he hears something, they included something I always really liked in novels. There's like a shutter over the window that gets ripped off. We don't see it happen, but after Mike dies, it's discarded in the bushes. He's like, well, it was damp last night. There's no footprints. There's no marks where a ladder would go. How did that come off? It's slightly different. So we see it on the ground and we see someone going through the window. So I like that something like that was included. And Matt just pegs it. Rather than ringing Ben in the middle of the night, he goes straight to Ben. And this is the first one where Susan is staying over with him. Yeah. Because in the original adaptation, I don't think they sleep together.
I don't think they do. It's implied that they're clearly very interested in each other.
Yeah.
I don't think they go that
But they are very much sleeping together in this one.
Her dad is very much like,
Yeah. Well, they seem to be a closer age in this adaptation.
Yeah.
Just go straight to him. He's like, oh, do you have a crucifix? And they go over to check it out and he's dead. Part of me thinks, shouldn't you have gone to the police? You've just seen someone breaking into your home.
Okay, so
it leads into a problem that are you going into what I think you're going into?
Maybe that it's odd that Matt instantly jumped to a supernatural conclusion.
Yeah. The idea that Mike Ryerson is some kind of creature of the night.
Matt instantly wants to jump to some sort of supernatural thing, and I personally think everyone starts believing it's vampires too soon.
Matt especially, right?
Matt especially. It's just like the first thing he jumps to is, oh, vampires.
Yeah.
And again, maybe we had more scenes. But To me, a part I always liked in previous adaptations is Matt and Ben on their own, sat at his dinner table with the body upstairs, talking rationally about what this could be.
But it's a movie. We don't have time. We don't have time for that.
So then naturally, Mike has to visit Matt. It's done. All right. Again, I like the glowing crosses. He holds them off and he throws them out the door.
Yeah.
But it's also not as creepy as it is in the original.
I do.
I miss the rocking chair.
Yeah. Oh,
but the eyes.
rocking chair
Again,
was
the
great.
eyes are doing so much work here.
That's one of my favourite moments in is it 79, the OG series. It's one of my favourite moments, yeah. Jeffrey Lewis just kind of rocking and his eyes are closed.
Feels kind of baffling. It's been 20 years since the 2004 one.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I
Long
know,
time.
right? But I love that shot of Mike also coming down the stairs and you just see his shadow.
Silhouette, yeah.
It's like, again, Gary Dalman, he's doing interesting stuff with the camera and, and his lighting. Fair play. But something that's consistent, in every adaptation is, and it must be in the book, is Matt saying, I rescind my invitation.
Yeah.
Or I revoke it, or whatever. I love that. Really cool.
Yeah. This was cool though, blasts about that. And again, I like the glowing crucifixes.
Yeah.
Like this safety weapon that they have.
Yeah.
So it's the same. So they have to go to, when Danny Glick's mother, the Glick bully's mother dies, we have to do the scene in the morgue where everyone wants to basically prove if vampires are real in this one. So in this one's Ben, it's Ben, Susan, and Dr. Cody. I think in the original one, I think in the book, it's just Ben and Dr. Jimmy Cody who went for that one.
Right.
And I like how they put the sticks together like they do in that. I believe they do it in the original miniseries as well. Again, making it glow. And the subtle scares, like the arm twitching and stuff. I love that. The building the atmosphere, holding back the vampire by holding the sheet against it, and you just see the teeth. I'm like, this is cool. But the scene still feels like it ends too soon.
I love that sequence. Wait, is it Marjorie Glick?
Yeah.
Who's on the slab? I thought that was really well done. Yeah, the little arm twitch. The thing that really haunted me was the first words out of her mouth is Danny. She's looking for her son.
So we know
Even
which
dead.
of the brothers. Well, that's another thing. This one, we never see Ralphie as a vampire because he's been sacrificed, but we actually see him sacrificed.
Yeah.
From the bag POV over his head, and we see Barlow as well. We see a lot more Barlow.
Yeah,
in this.
we do actually.
We'll get to him.
That hospital sequence, I did like. Susan pissed me off though, and that like Alfred would. It's the one scene where she has a bit of oomph.
Did she?
And she's like,
when?
she's telling Susan like, grab my bag, get the stuff out of my bag, da da da. And Susan is just standing there like stock still. And I appreciate, like she's scared. Like this is the first time she's seeing an undead person.
But Susan,
like,
this
movie,
this movie is less than 2 hours long. We ain't got time for this.
Don't stop standing there. Come on, like do something. I like how the doctor gets bit, and then she gets a rabies shot, and
like in the book,
clever. Like that's clever. I like.
Doesn't impact the rest of the story though.
No, not really. But it's a good scene. I liked it.
So we're slowly starting to gather our main characters now, and they all kind of meet in a church where we have previously met Father Callahan. In this, we first meet him in the drunk tank. Mm-hmm. He gets done dirty in this again. This is where Mark comes into the scene. He's very much like, this is vampires. I've got comic books. I've read them all. I've experienced one last night. I've got some stakes. I'm just here for some holy water.
Yeah, then he just goes off into...
He knows he needs to go kill Barlow. Because that's it, like, the vampires are very vocal about who their master is in this one. And I don't mind that. It moves the story along a little bit.
Barlow wants to meet you.
Yeah. It's like, cool. Head vampire.
Oh, thanks. Now I know where to go.
Thank you. He's like, I'm going to go. It's also the middle of the day, so I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So Mark goes. Matt, I believe, ends up crossing paths with him.
In the basement.
And Matt gets bitten by Barlow. Which weirdly does lead to... Have I missed out on another scene? I can't remember.
No, there's just there's a scene where they all meet in the church.
Yeah.
And do they all agree to meet back there later?
Yeah, when they investigate, they do all investigate the house as a group, and they realize the stairs are missing. But through once, again, I only watched this movie once. I can't remember where all the scenes are. Issue I have with that scene is the vampires do seem to be pretty active during the day, because they seem to have this. It seems to be this rule of sunlight has to hit them directly to stop them. Whereas in the novel, during the day, the vampires are out. Like when they're exploring the town, they pull one out from underneath a trailer.
Oh.
So that's it. Like, we don't even have like the rich and the poor versions of like the lot, the the difference between the different groups of people. Like, we need more time in the lot with the townspeople. But they pull one out into the sun, and they don't necessarily set on fire. They're just kind of
Like me.
kind of crawls back under, but it doesn't wake up. In this one, the vampires are kind of like, they'll just hide from the sun, but they're perfectly fine being around. But the scenes are all too brightly lit for anything to ever truly feel like nighttime. That's a big problem I have. When the rest of they're casting those rules, they're doing whatever they want whenever it suits the scene. When we went for a more traditional style vampire, I want the sun to be more of a threat to them.
No, I get it. Something that I like, and just now that we're at this point, I guess, in the movie, is you hear like little references every now and then of, oh, so-and-so isn't picking up the phone. Oh, so-and-so died last night. Yeah. You know, like you get little moments of, oh shit, like the townsfolk really is like dropping like flies now.
Piled newspapers, milk that's not been collected. Yeah, I really like that. I've just seen the towns become quiet. I see the cars start to disappear.
Cars are starting to disappear. Yeah. I like that.
Obviously, I like all adaptations. Susan has to die.
Yeah, there's just things like with Salem's Lot that you really cannot fuck up. Like the Glick boys have to die. Susan has to die.
Yeah. And this one, again, it's okay. She goes home, and it's a nice little twist the way that her mother has become the new familiar. And we did see a scene of Matt looking into the shop, like Straker and Barlow's shop, and seeing him dancing with a woman, so I'm assuming it must have been her.
Must have been her.
Even you pointed out, that was a weirdly composited scene. So it's clearly like a real outside, weird. But they've added the inside of the building. The lighting was just so off, and it looks so weird. I
think it was the scene you were trying to think of before that you forgot when Mark kills Straker.
He kills Straker, like he does in the books. Mm-hmm. And then, because Father Callahan says, show me the body, that's when they go investigate. And I really like that scene, when they go around, we see Matt as a vampire then.
Yes.
All that, I quite liked. So, her mother has become the new familiar. I'm like, this is a nice twist. Mm. The layout of the house is a bit weird, because we're going to get a jump scare of Floyd. And realistically, even though we are just told, he has a thing for your woman, but they have no scenes together before this.
Yeah, I know.
And he bites her. There's a kind of cool thing of like, Ben doesn't read. It's hard to tell where Ben's looking, but he's clearly looking at what's happening in a mirror. Then he turns back, and there's vampire biting her in the neck.
Yeah.
Yep. He takes her to the church and she starts like squirming because she's on hallowed ground, but he can't stake her.
Yeah, you can't do it.
I just wish we'd have more time with these characters. She kind of escapes out into the night. And one thing I really like, and this scene is in the trailer, and there's another one when they go back to Matt's house, when we see the vampires just stood still on top of buildings.
Yeah, just
when they're slowly starting to dominate the town, and you see those eyes.
Yeah.
Like when he runs in the streets after Susan's empty, turns back to the church, back to the street, and there's just vampires everywhere. But it's creepier when him and Susan just drive by Matt's house. Like there's a vampire on Matt's roof, and you can see like 3 of them.
That was a good moment.
Eerie, I really like that.
I preferred the scene on Matt's roof, because that's when they realise that Matt must be a vampire now.
Yeah. Mark's parents are killed when he goes to hide. This is in the trailer as well. Again, it shouldn't be. When he hides in his treehouse. Yeah. Again, the rules of like what can enter, so he closes all the doors and windows. But he's being chased by all the kid vampires, and you see them all in the trees. I'm like, I really like this.
Come out and play with us.
This is really cool. I think the kid vampires are going to have a bigger part in this as well.
More
so
than
at one
likely.
point, we see the bus. Now, in the book and in the 2004 one, because it's included, the bus driver is a bit of a bully to the kids and quite often kick them out and make them walk home. And we see him rubbing graffiti off the bus. Now, famously, he is attacked by a group of kids in his own bus. He keeps the bus in his backyard. Which is that a thing? Does the bus driver?
It should be a thing.
In local towns, do they kind of own the buses themselves? I don't know. So I think that was supposed to be a part in it. Just by seeing how many vampire kids we had, I'm like, we're missing something here. We're definitely missing a scene.
Yeah.
And that would have been. I like it in 2004.
Yeah.
I would have liked it here. But I liked him hiding there, so I guess we're up to Mark's. That's another inevitable. Mark's parents have to die.
Yes. Mark's parents, who we only meet in this one scene alone.
Yeah. So
practically.
They all split off. They all kind of have like jobs to do. So Father Callahan goes back with Mark to try and convince his parents of what's going on. And naturally, they're like, go, parents need to talk. Mostly, I like the scene. There's a knock at the door. His dad goes, opens the door. We don't see, there's nothing there. And he goes outside and we don't hear anything. So we turn back and his mother is being eaten by Barlow.
Yeah.
Like, it's biting into her
He's
neck.
just
Again,
there.
this whole thing of, like, how do, like, vampires need an invitation. I always had this idea. I don't know if I got this from the novel or not. As evil, well, it's kind of, as evil spreads through the town, Barlow needs less and less permission to move places.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But what if you buy something from their antique store? What if that is a way of inviting them into your home? I always thought that would have been an interesting approach, but for some reason, Barlow's allowed to enter the home.
Interesting.
It's not as cool as it is in the original. It's not even as wacky as it is in 2004. I like Rutger Hauer climbing over the ceilings.
Yeah, but it's better than the head bash.
Oh yeah, the bash. Like,
terrible death.
Then his dad comes in and he's holding his neck. Anyway, so far I'm like, you know what? This isn't bad. This is not bad. I do not like Barlow's design.
No.
The weird veins on his neck. He has like no chin.
Well, they've gone for the 79 look of, you know, like the classic, more like Nosferatu.
It looks like a Halloween mask.
Yeah, it looks like Pietro from What We Do in the Shadow.
Oh no, Pietro.
Yeah, Pietro.
That's a fun. We'll do a video on that someday.
Yeah.
So then this is when it becomes like the showdown between Father Callahan and Barlow. So Callahan's like, you know, tells Mark to run. That's when he runs off like into his treehouse.
Yeah, we need a moment just to talk about the injustice of Father Callahan.
He's basically not a character.
No, he's not.
And right, 2004 took a lot of liberties by basically making him be the successor head vampire.
Don't mind that.
So in the novel, he's a massive alcoholic, like he is.
Yeah.
In this one, he's constantly questioning his faith. And I mentioned this in previous videos. Barlow gives him a worse fate. He bites him and basically makes him a familiar. He cannot enter the church anymore. So he ends up just leaving. He just gets on a bus and goes because he knows at some point Barlow's going to make him do something horrible. Yeah. So he wants to get as far away as possible. And that would be, I know he appears in the Dark Tower series. Like, he's a character that transcends this novel.
So he's a character that Stephen King clearly
likes. Yeah. But it's that thing of like good versus evil. Faith. A lot of people, the crosses are working for them because they believe they are going to work, and his cross starts to fade, which again I like that by having a physical glowing cross we can have it. It just means that all the crosses are really chunky, like, so they can have that light starting to fade as Barlow gets closer because he doesn't believe that he can stop this monster. It just doesn't go on enough. It's such an important part of the book, and the original series doesn't quite do it as justice, but it does it better than this. Anytime you bring vampires into something, this clearly has that religious element.
Yeah.
There's some interesting stuff you can talk about, and this film just does it, and just straight off. He's killed off screen as well because we just hear a scream. I think this is the dirtiest this character has been done, and I don't even mind the actor that plays him.
No, the actor was fine.
It's just was there more that was cut?
Say what you like about 2004, and I know it doesn't have a lot of love, but you have to admit that even though they diverted for what they did with Callahan in that version, it's still more interesting and better than what they did here. Because I actually like 2004 in that sense of, you know, like he kind of becomes the lead of this unholy congregation, this unholy flock. I like that because that's a twisted thing to do. You know, that this is a priest. It's the inversion of what he's all about, what he stands for.
Weirdly,
that's cool.
Kind of like Midnight Mass.
A little bit like Midnight Mass, yeah, an unholy flock. That's interesting. Here, it's just what's the point of Callahan even being there? He doesn't but this is what makes me think again, because we see him peppered throughout the film, like in the cells. We see him at the very beginning in his car swigging a bottle at the drive-in. It's like the film is drawing attention to this character. So I'm willing to bet money there were more scenes of him.
Well, I reckon he initially had a death scene. They've just added a scream in over Mark running away.
Probably.
But yeah, absolutely been done dirty. So by this point, we only have Mark, Ben, and Dr. Cody left.
Yeah.
Ben and Cody just want to leave town. But it's Mark that's like, no, we have to. He's killed Danny Glick at this point.
Yeah.
And they realize that, well, Ben Mears, where's all the cars?
Yeah.
Earlier in the film, Susan took him to... she hinted when she saw him at the library that she's going to be at the drive-in. So he turns up. And I like this new set piece. This is somewhere apparently where all the town will go, because it's a small town, there's not much to do. And that's when Ben realizes there's no cars. Where would all the townsfolk go? Now, in the novel, the finale doesn't take place in the basement of the Marston house. it takes place, like where the stairs are missing, it takes place in the boarding house, which we've only seen, like, his bedroom for it. And, you know, they'd cut the stairs out. In this one, they decided to do it at the drive-in, which is the biggest swing and an absolute hit for me. I really like this as a set.
like the drive-in.
All the cars are there. And all the vampires are hiding in the boots of their cars.
I like it.
Then you have Cody go, they're using the cars as coffins. Like, yep, we got that. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Dr. Cody. I'm
So glad
happy
you're here. I'm
here.
so glad you're about to get shot with a shotgun in a couple of seconds.
That's a good kill.
It is a good kill.
That took me
Susan's
off
mother's
guard.
back because Ben's instantly looking for her and he sees her in the boot.
Yeah.
Again, this is such an interesting setting for a movie, and
It is.
it's weird that the best part of this movie is the biggest change.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's interesting in a couple of ways. Yeah, because obviously it's the biggest swing to the left that the adaptation has taken so far. It's so different from the novel, and yet it's actually probably one of the best sequences of the entire film.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting because obviously the Marston house traditionally plays such a huge part in the story.
It also basically isn't a character in this.
It's not. Aside from that one shot at the beginning, like you said, where we, Ben
see it.
kind of looks at it weirdly, and it's sort of there hovering over the town like a weird spectre.
Gargoyle.
Yeah, we don't see it again.
I mean, they go in it.
Oh well, yeah. But I mean, we go in it, but it doesn't play a big part
No, it doesn't.
in the showdown whatsoever. And we know that Derek Mears was cast as Hubie Marston, who has no scenes in this. And I wonder if, again, obviously they would have shot scenes with him, flashbacks, I guess. I wonder if they opted to take all of Marston's scenes out because they knew the house wasn't going to be where the showdown was.
Yeah.
And having him as a character wouldn't make sense for the drive-in at the end.
Unless they did, in order to lead us to believe, like the characters believe that all the vampires are going to be in the basement, then for it to be a twist, oh, it's not here. Again, like it is a novel, it is a twist that the finale takes place in the basement of the boarding house. It's a bizarre one. So now we have this just pretty cool sequence where Susan's mother is shooting at Ben, but the sun becomes an actor in this point because the speed at which the sun goes down is very much depends on the moment. But as soon as the shadow, because the sun is going down behind the big screen, and whenever the shadow goes across the car, the boots start to open. You start seeing the eyes. You see a few familiar faces, and I'm like, this is cool.
They all start popping open one by one. I like that.
Love this.
It's cool.
They hinted at it in the trailer, and I'm glad they didn't show off more of this because then it became really cool. So then suddenly, like, Ben is having to fight off vampires as they're starting to wake up while he's getting shot at. The vampires in this one, they're not particularly. They go from being really creepy to comically uncreepy.
I think it's...
And all these vampires, like, there's a cool kill. He stakes one of them, then throws another one down onto the stake. But for the most part, the vampires seem to be like carry-oning themselves and just falling all over the place. Like they're basically just like, it's like he pulls out a stake and they're like, oh, I'm just going to fall into that stake. He's easily fighting off like four vampires.
They are inconsistently threatening.
Yeah, inconsistently threatening. For any American viewers, Carry On was a comedy, like a comedy troupe series of films, very slapstick. That is how the vampires seem to be performing for me. Mark, being the badass that he is, gets a car, drives through the foundations for the screen so they can get a bit more sunlight.
Yeah, because the screen is blocking the sun.
Yeah,
essentially.
He also runs down Susan's mother. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So the sun comes down and in awful cheap straight to streaming VFX set all the vampires on fire. I'm really curious to know at what point in post production this film was decided to go straight to streaming because the VFX budget definitely got cut because that looked bad.
Not good.
Especially when there's a close up on one. It's like, no, that looks bad. I imagine this probably would have been cheaper to get a stunt guy, set them on fire, put them in different positions doing it, and comp them all together rather than doing it digitally.
Yeah.
Like, there are some good VFX in this film as well.
But
like,
even to the untrained eye, the fire scenes...
It looked bad.
Yeah.
Fire's hard to composite. But all them die. They end up having a bit... Ben finally has a bit of a showdown inside like the drive-in's like little shop, like office. Has a bit of fight with Susan, so their showdown finally comes to an end.
He finally stakes Susan.
Yeah. But prior to that, they get Barlow's coffin out of the back of like a van. And it's a lovely ornate coffin, and you can see the sun like the shadow of the sun going down, getting closer and closer, and they can't get it open. Did you say you watched the review? They said, why didn't they just pull the coffin out the way?
Yeah, because...
they could clearly get it out the truck.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they're up against the clock because you can see the sun is like slowly chasing this coffin. It's like it's you know, only a matter of time before it's immersed in darkness. And this YouTuber was like, why don't they literally just drag it like 20 feet to the left?
Yeah, give themselves
more
more time. They got it out the van easy enough.
Yeah, I know.
Whilst Ben and Susan having their showdown, Barlow was then stood in front of the projector, which I kind of like looking down on Mark, and Mark hides underneath the falling down screen, and Barlow's putting his fist through trying to get him. To me, couldn't Barlow just lifted the entire thing?
It's what I mean, inconsistently threatening.
Finally gets a hold of Mark, and he's like roaring in his face, and he sees like this foe, this child that realistically he's seen like once, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
In to be honest, what was a pretty cool moment. Ben stakes him through the back of the head,
which is, you know, not a death thing. Like, that's not going to kill a vampire.
I mean, he does. He does stake him again.
He does, yeah.
But as soon as you pull him out, and you can see through Barlow's mouth, Ben stood behind him. Like, that's pretty badass, to be honest.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool moment.
So yeah, then stakes him again, and it's all over. And someone described it as the characters didn't win; they just survived.
Yeah. And I
something that's kind of missing from the end is I feel like there needed to be a bit more of a hint that maybe some more vampires are still around. And then the movie kind of ends, they drive away. I feel like we've shit on this movie a lot, but there is a lot of stuff in this that I really like. It all comes down to time.
The runtime.
Some of the acting, bit more budget to finish off. I generally think they hadn't fully ended the post-production process when they decided to cut this movie down. And that's where they're saving their money so that they don't have to do the VFX work to that additional hours worth of footage.
The thing, I know I might be in the minority here, but I do not mind long films. Some of my favourite movies are the 3-hour mark. I have a lot of patience for really good storytelling. I would personally not mind a 3-hour or even 4-hour feature film adaptation. But I know that a studio, especially Warner Brothers, is not going to commit to that.
No.
People don't have the patience. Young people especially, you know, I think like that is a fact now. Like, they don't have the patience for longer form content. So, yeah, the runtime, it is the biggest obstacle for any really good adaptation of this story.
But if a studio doesn't want to put out a 3-hour long film, don't do a feature adaptation of it then.
Yeah.
It belongs
on TV.
It belongs on TV.
Stephen King commented on it when it was still like, it was a bit unclear as to what it's
he said he liked it.
And he said he didn't understand why Warner Brothers was shelving it, because he was like, it's fine.
He said it's old. Fine. His words were, it's old school horror. It's a slow burn. This movie is not a slow burn, so he must have seen a longer cut of this film.
I wonder. Yeah. I would like to see the longer version of this, because it's not a terrible movie. I have absolutely seen worse. I think in terms of all, excluding Return to Salem's Lot, so including the main 3 adaptations of the book, I would still rank this last. Yeah. I think, for a few reasons. But it was fine. Yeah. It was fine.
Tell you what, the sun is definitely making me want to burst into flames right now. But yeah, it is fine. If they do a Blu-ray release of it, I would pick it up just because I like the story in all of its forms. Yes. It's more this movie. It's not a bad movie. It's a frustrating movie. And I think if you had no prior knowledge of Salem's Lot, you hadn't read the novel, I think you could actually have a really good time with this film. You could have a good time. But then you would seek out the original and realize how much better it is. That's it. Is Salem's Lot 2024 a gateway horror into other adaptations of Salem's Lot?
Maybe.
Or could it be just a really good gateway into vampire films? Because as a vampire film, it is a good film.
It is, yeah. There's enough of the lore that's there. There are some decent scares, I think, as well.
It's when because they do the whole grabbing them from the sky. Like when Ben runs back into hospital, they grab him and then he stakes. I think it's Mike, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's Mike.
Yeah, and again, I don't care for that in my vampire movies. I understand the criticism of this movie.
Yeah, but it's not. I wouldn't say this is a total failure. You know,
it's not even the worst Stephen King adaptation I've seen.
Absolutely not. You know, but I think the criticism, the main criticism that's pretty unanimous across the board, it comes down to the runtime. I think this proves that if we do ever see a Salem's Lot adaptation again, it shouldn't be in feature film format.
At the most, even if they didn't want to do a 3-hour, a 2.5 hour, could have really helped. So I do love the vampire claws in this, like the long fingers. I really like the fingers, the eyes, the vampires themselves. Other than their little slider for how vicious and effective they're going to be.
Yeah.
From a creepy perspective, they pull it off.
Yeah.
So have you got any more notes on this one?
No.
Yeah.
This concludes our Salem's Lot.
Yeah. There's probably things that we've not spoken out. The movie is still very new. Like I say, if it does come out on Blu-ray, I am going to pick it up. It's probably not going to happen if they ever put out an extended version of it. Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
For what it's worth, I still think the original series is the best.
Yeah. For me, it literally goes in order of release.
Yeah.
But it's weird with 2004. There's things I don't like about 2004, there's things I do. And that's the same with this one. All versions have to amalgamate different storylines, cut things out, change things. And it's just with a product, with a novel this thick, you've got to. The original is still better.
It is. Yeah, it's like, as an adaptation, 2024 is alright. But if you're looking at it from, like, an adaptation perspective, it suddenly becomes a lot more interesting to compare it to the others.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about adaptation.
Each of them does some...
They do something different.
Each of them do things differently, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And changing the ending so drastically
Yeah.
was a risk. And so far, I've not heard anyone complain about the changing of the setting.
It's the best thing
for the
they
ending.
did.
Yeah.
Really.
Helps it stand out.
Yeah.
So, thanks a lot, guys. Let us know, have you seen Salem's Lot 2024? And what did you think about it? What was it a bit of a disappointment for you? There could be someone who watches this, and like I said, they might have no prior knowledge to any Salem's Lot stuff. That think this film's really good.
Yeah.
And are you one of those people?
Yeah.
Things have gone bad in the lot.
Things have gone bad in the lot.
Things have gone bad in the lot. So thanks a lot, guys. Oh, I forgot to shout. It's weird. I'm shouting out channel members in person now at request. So I'm going to have them pop up somewhere. Thank you to the channel members. You guys, you are awesome, and you help us in so many ways.
Yes.
One of which is lending us this audio recorder, which I think I mentioned in our yearly roundup. You guys, you help us do this.
Yeah.
So
massively.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys. And we will see you when we see you.